Hello, and welcome to the seventh JCLP President's Forum. My name is Ryan Golden, and I'm from Gulfport, Mississippi. I know the many challenges you face because I'm a third generation board president. My grandparents helped found Congregation Beth Israel in 1959. I'm also active with the Greater Mississippi Small Congregation Cohort organized by JCLP. This webinar is about attracting new members, some of whom may become new leaders. Outreach is harder than ever because so much Jewish content is online. But Rabbi Google does not have the intimacy of an in person congregation. That's what we have to offer, a tightly knit Jewish community. You're about to hear 4 success stories on outreach. The experts are leaders like you from the frozen expanses of northern Michigan, the sunny beaches of Southwest Florida, the Great Plains, and the Deep South. They have some surprising takeaways and tips to sustain your synagogues. After their presentations, we'll take your questions, and we want to hear about your outreach efforts. Please feel free to post comments in the chat. Let's get started.
Hello, I'm Catherine Peterson in Lincoln, Nebraska. I'm a member of Congregation B'nai Jeshurun, the Reformed Synagogue, also known as the South Street Temple.
I'm Emma Feldman. I grew up in Lincoln's conservative shul, Congregation Tifereth Israel.
I'm connected to both synagogues. My name is Ileana Hammicksburg. Everyone calls me Lily.
The 3 of us lead an outreach program called the Young Jewish Initiative. As the name suggests, YJI is geared towards people in their mid-20s to mid-40s, a group notoriously underrepresented and sometimes absent from organized Judaism.
Our goal is to win their hearts and minds, and over time, revitalize Lincoln's Jewish community.
The 3 of us are a formidable team, but we couldn't be more different.
Growing up, I went to the only Jewish school in Nebraska and to Jewish summer camp. Currently, I teach Hebrew and I'm a lay cantor.
I'm satisfied going to services on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Not necessarily more than that.
I converted to Judaism in my mid-30s. My parents were active in their Lutheran church, but I never quite felt like I belonged there, and I was always looking for something else. Judaism is where I found it.
We started the Young Jewish Initiative last year. Leaders of the 2 congregations, working with the Jewish Community Legacy Project, knew they had to engage younger members to survive.
They approached me because I had been the treasurer at the South Street Temple, and Emma's involvement with Congregation Tifereth Israel goes back to her grandparents. We recruited Lily a few months later.
As we try to pull in young Jewish adults, we are unapologetic that our programming is not super Jewish, not in the traditional sense. It's Judaism light. We don't expect people to know Hebrew or care about what Rabbi Akiva said.
So none of our events have been in a sanctuary. We're more likely to be in a coffee shop, ice cream parlor, or a bar for Purim.
We have to meet people where they're at. Our agenda is making connections that are meaningful to them, and inviting young adults to Shabbat services just doesn't work. Many have spouses that are not Jewish, and they don't go to services because they don't expect to find their peers there. But the social aspects of a Jewish community, that's another story, at least potentially.
We say potentially because YJI's first event was a flop. A spectacular flop. The idea was to hang out at a coffee shop. Nobody showed up. Just me, Catherine, and her best friend. We were shocked, and I'm not gonna lie. I'm like, why are we doing this? Is this a waste of our time? But Catherine kept pushing.
We tried again, this time with better promotion. We met at a trendy coffee shop called The Mill at Telegraph, in an up-and-coming neighborhood of young professionals. About a dozen people showed up, and all we did was talk. We introduced ourselves as strangers and reintroduced ourselves to people we hadn't seen in ages. Everyone paid for their own coffee.
It was just a hangout with no Jewish content. Someone came that I hadn't seen since high school, so I began to feel a little more optimistic.
Our next event was an ice cream social that was not well attended. I think there were 5 people. That's when I realized we needed another person to get the word out. I could see that social media only goes so far. And a lot of the people we were trying to reach were either not reading or not getting emails from the synagogues. That's where Lily comes in. She's our resident extrovert. She knows people who know people.
I know people through my work as a Hebrew school teacher. I also have friends at the University of Nebraska-Lincoln, which connects us to Hillel. And I have no shame in going up to people and saying, "Oh my gosh, did you hear about the event that's coming up?" I'm not embarrassed to ask multiple times.
For Thanksgiving, we called our party Friendsgiving. It was popular because we opened it up to families with kids. I think we had 26 people. We used the temple's social hall. The Young Jewish Initiative provided the turkey and drinks. The side dishes were potluck style.
For promotion, we now use Facebook, Instagram, and a text messaging app called GroupMe. But the indispensable medium is one-on-one contact with a low-key approach.
You can't be headstrong. It'll backfire. Imagine if the first time you saw somebody, they're telling you, you should be a part of some group you've never heard of. Your reaction is likely to be, "Whoa, back off, dude. Why are you presuming that I need more Judaism in my life?" So instead try, "Why don't we grab some beers or any non-alcoholic drink and hang out?"
We're in touch with the synagogue presidents for every event. Both synagogues have been super generous with access to their social halls and paying for food, drinks, and party favors.
Hanukkah was pretty simple. We had drinks, played dreidel, and exchanged little gifts. About a dozen people came. I mean, who doesn't like eating chocolate gelt?
On Valentine's Day, there were decorations, drinks, snacks, and a chocolate fountain. But the plot thickens. For the first time on that Saturday night, we also included a Havdalah service. We called our event Havdalentine's Day. The feedback was positive, and we have some theories why.
First of all, Havdalah services are short and sweet. Second, you can move around, unlike a Shabbat dinner where you might feel tethered to the table. And finally, the prayers. The Hebrew was transliterated and translated into English. For people who weren't comfortable saying the prayers, we had readings, including some that didn't mention God.
We're learning from trial and error. For Havdalentine's Day, we hired a teenager to watch the kids, and we could see there were people who wanted kids there and people who didn't.
Our definition of young adults spans a wide range, and we're seeing that the 20-somethings don't necessarily mingle with the 40-somethings.
We also realized from feedback that we had a blind spot about gender and sexual identity. Some people want name tags that include their pronouns.
We can offer some general tips if you want to adapt the Young Jewish Initiative model to your community. Start slow. Emphasize interpersonal connections rather than Jewish content.
Use different locations. It adds excitement and reaches people with different interests. Watch for introverts. As leaders, it may fall to you to break the ice.
Have realistic expectations. 55 people have attended our events, but about half of them have been one-offs. I still haven't seen anyone show up to services that hadn't been coming before. I remind myself that building community isn't done overnight. So for now, if Lily, Emma, and I see young Jewish adults getting together for anything,
I'm here because I like Purim and I like drinking.
that's a win.
Hello, I'm Keith Alter on Marco Island, Florida. I am the first vice president of the Jewish congregation of Marco Island, JCMI for short.
And I'm Mitch Braun, JCMI's board secretary and membership co-chair. Our story is about a new way of looking at sustainability, culminating a few months from now when my golf cart will be converted into JCMI's float in the city's Christmas parade. Yes, you heard me, Christmas parade.
We'll explain the parade shortly, but first, let me give you the headline. In addition to looking at the membership as a source of revenue, we now look at fundraising as a source of new members. In other words, we turn that old model on its head.
Marco Island is a resort community. We're on Florida's far southwest coast. Our population swells in the winter and plummets in the summer. As a resort synagogue, half of our 100 households are snowbirds.
Although our location is not typical, we face the same challenges as other small congregations. Repairs to a 40-year-old building, salaries for a part-time rabbi and a full-time cantor, and a declining membership. Our average age is around 78. That's actually an improvement from a few years ago when the average age was 85. I'm 62, one of the youngest members.
Only about 25% of our budget comes from dues, the rest from fundraising. And what we found is that when we do it right, fundraising can attract new members.
It's not a stampede of new members, but it's better than nothing.
Here's an example. Every year we organize 4 to 5 concerts that are open to the public. The acts are cover bands for some of the biggest names in pop music. Elton John, the Bee Gees, opera singer Andrea Bocelli, and of course, a tribute to Elvis.
One of our congregants, who works in the entertainment industry, negotiates a good rate on bands that are already scheduled to play in Southwest Florida. When the performers come to Marco Island, our sanctuary and social hall can hold up to 350 people. We charge between $40 and $50 a seat.
The vast majority of the audience is not Jewish, but they all walk past the membership brochures in the lobby. And we print our name and website on the ticket receipts. Sure enough, we've got new members after the concerts, typically interfaith or same-sex couples who had no idea there was a Jewish congregation here.
One of our mainstay fundraisers is a weekly bingo game from October to May. We average about 150 people each night. No more than 10% are Jewish. They can play for as little as $18 and win jackpots up to $250. We earned $75,000 last year. In addition to the revenue, bingo keeps us alive in another way. It enhances our visibility. With cross-promotion, some of the people who go to bingo now go to the cover band concerts and other events. And some of the people who go to the events tell their Jewish friends about us.
The Jewish Community Legacy Project is encouraging us to take it further. We're going to look for distinctive Jewish names on the list of people who register for our events. We can invite them to Shabbat services.
Which brings us to small changes in how we observe Shabbat. Changes that broke down barriers.
For years, our rabbi and cantor led Shabbat services from the Bima. But after an informal survey of our members, we moved our seating into a horseshoe shape, and we asked the service leaders to move off the Bima and onto the main floor. Our members have embraced this change because it's much more intimate.
Change number 2, Shabbat dinner. For years, some longtime members have been meeting at local restaurants before services. It had a nice vibe. The problem was the newer members felt excluded, and they were. When we heard complaints, we alerted one of the organizers. She was mortified to learn about the hurt feelings. She pushed the group to open up. As a result, attendance at Shabbat dinners has nearly tripled.
Taken together, the Shabbat dinners and moving the service leaders off the Bima, the Jewish congregation of Marco Island is a warmer, more welcoming community. And as Noah says, good outreach starts with inreach.
Northerners looking to visit or retire in Florida often shop around. They might start with a short stay in one of the hotels along Marco Island's 6 Mile Beach. So to increase our visibility, we supplied the hotels with information about our congregation. Some of the hotel guests eventually become regulars and stay at major condo and townhouse developments. We hope to reach them through the homeowners associations.
Last year, we hit the visibility jackpot. We entered the city's annual chili competition, which raises money for the Marco Island Fire Department. It draws 1,000 people.
Using a recipe from my dad, Steve Alter, we made 20 gallons of chili. While our team served the food, my wife was talking up the synagogue and handing out brochures. Although Steve's Awesome Chili did not win the cook-off, we sold more than 100 concert tickets, and we picked up 2 new members. Once again, it was comment after comment from people that I didn't know there was a temple on the island.
The Jewish congregation of Marco Island has a long tradition of interfaith activities. It's the right thing to do, and it helps our visibility. During Hanukkah, several Marco Island church leaders come to our party. They help light the candles, and they stay for latkes and jelly donuts.
Last year, those church leaders became our allies in a zoning battle. They joined our challenge to a new drive-through restaurant that was going to be right next to our cemetery. In the end, we lost on the zoning. But in the process, we raised our visibility with those local officials.
That matters because we have other business with the City Council. Every year, the city issues a permit that allows us to use our parking lot commercially. We're just a block and a half from the beach, and we charge $20 per car. On a busy 3-day weekend, we can make $3,500. But here's the catch. The city permit limits us to 56 days a year. So building on our good relations with the community and elected officials, we plan to ask the city to let us go longer with parking. That would bring in more money, give us more visibility, and now and again, new members.
We realize your congregations are not close to a tropical beach, but we hope you can apply some of the lessons that we've learned about outreach. First, do not assume everyone in town knows who you are. Second, break down the silos between the fundraising and membership committees. The whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Third, change, though stressful, can be good. We all tend to get set in our ways. The cliques, the we've always done it this way attitude. Imagine how that feels to a prospective member. Nudge your folks to be flexible.
Which brings us back to the Christmas parade. And the question, what is a nice Jewish golf cart like this doing in a place like that? Well, decked out with JCMI decorations for the parade, the golf cart will be good for community relations. It's the busiest time of the year, so advertising might get us some new members.
Even if we strike out, we'll be in good company. After all, some of the most iconic Christmas songs, the classics, were written by Jews. We look forward to answering your questions.
Hi, I'm Steve Silver in Aiken, South Carolina. When I became president of Adath Yeshurun Synagogue in 2022, our congregation was in trouble. We were losing members, and we were paralyzed by a negative culture tied to personal slights that went back more than a decade. This story is about how we are finding purpose in a common goal. I'll begin in 2016, when my wife and I sold our suburban New York home. We moved full-time to Aiken. The city has a long history of equestrian sports and a charming historic downtown. Aiken attracts a lot of retirees, and they can be a source of synagogue members. We joined Adath Yeshurun. I was happy going to one or two high holiday services, and sometimes to the Hanukkah party or maybe the congregational Seder. The main thing I did was pay my dues and make modest donations. But I was very interested in Southern Jewish history. In the 1840s, my third great uncle, Moses Winstock, settled in Charleston, 130 miles away. In the College of Charleston's Jewish archives, I found documents on my relatives. That led me to the Jewish Historical Society of South Carolina, where I learned about their work to document the role of Jewish merchants around the state, including in Aiken. All this as the 100th anniversary of Adath Yeshurun's charter was approaching. The synagogue had celebrated previous milestones, but the congregant who organized those events was in her 80s and didn't have the energy to do it again. For generations, Jews in Aiken had benefited from the town's religious tolerance and inclusion, and gave back to the community, values I cherish living here. So I volunteered to lead the Centennial Project. I thought it would be good for Adath Yeshurun and good for Aiken. I was surprised, though, when much of the congregation didn't seem to care. Very few members of the original families still lived here, and most transplants from other cities felt little connection to this history. Still, I was passionate about it, and fortunately, so were Aiken's civic leaders. With letters of support from Aiken's mayor, the Chamber of Commerce, and the local historical society, we won a $10,000 grant from the State Humanities Council and a $2,000 grant from the Southern Jewish Historical Society. We used the money to mount a 3-month exhibit about Aiken's Jewish community at the County Historical Museum. It was called A Source of Light, a reference to the role of Jews in Aiken's community life and Judaism's broader vision for a better world. We also dedicated a historic marker, and more than 100 descendants of the synagogue's founding members traveled to Aiken to celebrate with us. One family, the Polyakovs, donated $15,000 to the synagogue. Jacob and Moses Polyakov had signed the 1921 Articles of Incorporation. So the lesson learned here is embrace your history. No, not everyone is about to celebrate their centennial, but everyone has a story to tell, and you can create a reason to share it. Promoting the contribution your Jewish community has made in your town can strengthen your congregation. For Adath Yeshurun, the centennial was a turning point. It did not immediately result in a rush of new members, but it increased the visibility of the synagogue in Aiken and generated a renewed sense of pride in the congregation. Shortly after the centennial, the board president stepped down for health reasons, and I was asked to step in. Seeing the congregation from the inside, I was alarmed by the amount of divisive bickering. This one's annoyed at that one, who won't speak to the other one. This one won't participate if that one is involved. We were dysfunctional. Now, I'm a former management consultant. I focus on what's right for the organization or business, and I don't have the patience for unproductive turf battles. So as board president, I made it clear I wasn't going to play favorites or take sides in petty disputes. My focus was the whole community. Yes, I was open to other people's ideas, but no, if the conversation got into personalities, I shut it down. And I confess, I raised my voice sometimes, In one-on-one conversations, I would even say, "Be quiet," when someone was out of line, and later apologize for my temper. But the success of the centennial gave me credibility. And over time, focusing on the future helped me attract new board members. We created new roles for them, handling membership and communications. As a leadership team, we learned some additional lessons I can share with you. Visibility matters. Because there's no simple way to reach retirees or others moving to Aiken, we needed to be sure people could find us when they wanted a Jewish connection. Traditional media and social media are helpful, but you also need a great website. In our case, we hired a talented designer to redo our old and tired site. Its beauty and simplicity reflect our values and aspirations. It's also functional. Using search engine optimization, it generates 2 or 3 inquiries a month, and adding a commerce function allows people to join and make donations. Keep track of metrics. Collecting data pays off if you apply for a grant. The number of emails to publicize your events, how many news articles get written, and attendance. Build partnerships to expand your programming. We rejoined the Aiken Interfaith Group and participated in the annual Interfaith Thanksgiving concert. And working with the Carolina Small Congregations Cohort, organized by JCLP, we've collaborated on programs with other small synagogues. We also promote events at the Jewish Historical Society of South Carolina and the nearby Augusta Jewish Museum. The impact has been significant. Our membership has grown from about 50 households to nearly 70. At least half the increase is from retirees. We have about $100,000 in our reserves, and we live within our means. I now describe our congregation as fragile but stable. While 2021 was the centennial of our charter, this year is the 100th anniversary of our beautiful synagogue building. We're planning another celebration that will hopefully capture the magic of October 1925, when the local paper said, "Sunday was a great day in Aiken for the Jews of this city. The synagogue was filled to overflowing by members of the congregation and Gentile friends." Thanks for watching.
Hi, I'm Carol Elstein. We want to tell you a story about finding strength in numbers. I was one of 15 women instrumental in creating a network of 6 small synagogues, 3 in northern Michigan, 2 in the Upper Peninsula, and 1 across the border in Canada.
Our group is called the Lador Vidor Consortium. My name is Helen Kahn. I'm part of the consortium's leadership team. Our story is about turning isolated Jewish communities, some of them hundreds of miles apart, into an extended family.
People move to this remote area for many reasons. Expanding their Jewish identity is not one of them. The consortium's early leaders, however, already had a strong connection to Judaism, and we wanted more opportunities to express it. That was the spark then, and it's the glue that holds us together now.
Let me set the scene. It will sound familiar to many of you. Beginning in the late 1800s, there was an economic boom here. Timber, mining, commercial fishing. This was a golden age, and Jewish communities were part of it. Every one of our 6 congregations is in a port city on one of the Great Lakes.
Today, the synagogues are still here, but our congregations are much smaller. We're typically led by volunteers. We have limited rabbinical support and minimal professional staff. Temple Beth Shalom in Marquette has 30 households. Temple Bethel in Alpena, 20 households. Temple Jacob in Hancock, 10 households. Temple B'nai Israel in Petoskey, 80 households, half of them just for the summer. Congregation Beth Shalom in Traverse City, 70 households. Congregation Beth Jacob in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, with 20 households.
People here have a certain mindset. We tend to be self-reliant and proud, maybe to a fault.
So, in 2012, a group of synagogue presidents and board members set out to address our shared challenges. We were all women, and none of us wanted to be leaders forever. We applied to the Jewish Women's Foundation of Detroit to fund leadership training, starting with a retreat. We asked for $20,000. The foundation gave us $15,000. The running joke was that they didn't know there were Jews in our part of the state. Now they call us the Frozen Chosen. 15 women attended the first training retreat along with a facilitator. The agenda was how to bring younger members into congregational leadership. But it soon became clear that we, the current leaders, needed more fellowship and networking. With an aggregate membership of more than 200 households, we saw the potential for collaborating.
Some of the earliest programs were very simple, such as sharing videotapes of Jewish music, There were also block bookings where musicians spent a week traveling to individual communities. But we were ambitious. We organized weekend getaways with services, study, and socializing. You might call it a Shabbaton. We call them retreats. The first ones were for women.
Some of the men said they also wanted a retreat. And in true egalitarian fashion, true Northern Michigan fashion, we said, go plan one. We're still waiting.
A year after the first grant, the consortium went back to the Jewish Women's Foundation. This time they gave us their highest grant, $60,000 over 4 years. Another Detroit foundation, the Ravitz Foundation Initiative for Small Michigan Jewish Communities, has also been funding us for years. As they came to appreciate what we were doing, its parent foundation made a major investment in the consortium, a 4-year grant of $152,000.
Establishing ourselves with congregants at all 6 synagogues required careful diplomacy. We assured them that we were not going to tell them what to do, that we were here to support all 6 congregations, and that the consortium was not their competition.
The retreats are still our biggest programs. We hold 3 or 4 a year. One is women-centered. The rest are geared to adults, families, and kids. Each one has a theme or is focused on a holiday.
The retreats run from Friday late afternoon until Sunday around noon. We typically have 20 to 35 people, although it's been as many as 80. Participants pay for their own travel and lodging. We have scholarships if people need financial help. The consortium pays for meals and for bringing in guest rabbis, scholars, and artists.
The retreats are open to everyone, including Jews who are not members of a congregation. For security reasons, non-members have to be known to someone in our community or be someone we can vet.
The consortium's newest innovation is an education program with a paid part-time rabbi based in Seattle. She flies in for our retreats and uses Zoom to teach B'nai Mitzvah students Hebrew. For some of these kids, the consortium provides the only connection to Jews their age. For adults, the rabbi teaches a Judaism 101 course. She's also planning a course in Biblical Hebrew.
The consortium's leadership team meets once a month on Zoom. We have an unusual structure. Our decision-making is through consensus. For me, that's been an adjustment. I sometimes get impatient because it's a slow process, but consensus has some advantages. We take the time to flesh out ideas. We eventually get buy-in from the group, and it prevents us from putting one congregation's interests ahead of another's.
As we've matured, we've moved to a more formal division of labor. In consultation with JCLP, we have a designated chair to lead our meetings, a secretary, a treasurer, and a grant writer, positions that currently come with a small stipend.
We anticipate hiring a part-time administrator to help with logistics. And we are acutely aware of the need to diversify our funding. We want to be self-sustaining and not 100% dependent on grants.
If our consortium sounds like something you might want to try, let me share some lessons from our experience. Start with who you know. With us, somebody knew somebody in every congregation. But we were so spread out, none of us knew every congregation. We cared enough to make the effort. Youth facilitators. We knew early on that we needed outside help. Even today, JCLP is helping us transition from using one of the synagogues as a fiduciary to incorporating as an independent 501c3. Finally, evaluate your work. We take a good hard look at ourselves after every program. An interesting sidebar. The leadership team is still all women. The men help us when we give them an assignment, but as far as leading, they think we're doing a fine job. But some of us are slowing down and ready to step aside.
We've brought younger people into leadership by being blunt. We tell them, if you want your children to have more of a Jewish identity, you have to step up.
Ironically, we also feel the urge to remind the younger ones not to forget us, the seniors.
Maybe that's a sign that the Lador Vidor Consortium has achieved some of what we set out to do. We're moving from generation to generation.
Thank you all. Just wonderful presentations. Andy, thank you for producing. And I hope that all of you reflected on what was said and thought maybe there's some ideas that you can apply, but also maybe you have some things that you've been doing that you would like to share with the group. So what I'd like to do is invite anyone who wants to say something to unmute, either ask a question of our presenters, all of whom are phenomenal, or share something that you're doing special in your own congregation. And don't be shy.
Brittany Coe. We're more of a Havara now than a congregation, but we're in North Texas, Denton specifically, and I am the president. I was really inspired by the Youth Jewish Initiative folks. I think that's great because I am president and I'm 38, but the average member age of the people that come regularly is about 65 to 70. And so I have been trying like mad to get in touch with our Hillel, and it seems like we reach out and then the year turns over and then the next people, like Pharaoh didn't know Joseph. I feel like we have to go through that every single year. So I was really inspired by you all having things outside of your synagogue. Unfortunately, we do not have a synagogue space. We have a member that has an extra house they use as an office that we use to meet. So I also appreciate you all letting us know that the first couple of times you tried it, it didn't work, because I think some of our older folks think, I'm the youngest person, so I know all the young people and I know how to do all of the social media and everything. And so I feel overburdened at times with being the person to have to come up with all of the fresh new ideas. So anything that you all have to get the buy-in from the older folks of your congregation would really be helpful to me. And thank you.
Catherine or Ileana, I don't know if Emma's on. The last question that Brittany asked is really critical. How did you get buy-in from the leadership of the synagogues to support you without the synagogues expecting your young folks to have to join their synagogue?
My name is Catherine Peterson, and I can take this one, at least part of it. So I think that actually our leadership approached us because they saw that there was a need to involve the younger people in the community, in the Jewish community in Lincoln. And so they reached out to a number of folks I think that they thought could be good leaders and take the charge. And honestly, that kind of failed at first too, because one of the people showed up to a meeting and then decided that they couldn't they couldn't be in a leadership position. So then I was asked and I said yes. And like we said in the video, we've just been working with the leadership from each congregation. And again, they've been very supportive, both financially and just, what if you try this? What if you try that? It's been a good sounding board to bounce ideas off of them. I don't know if that answers your question at all, but it's been really wonderful to have their support and know that they're backing us pretty much every step of the way.
Can I just say something to Brittany? I was a faculty member at our local university here, Northern Michigan University, when there's Hillel and all that. I think that you need to be persistent, and you need somebody like Lily from Lincoln, Nebraska, who's not afraid to go up to people and say whatever, and is really an extrovert, which I am not. My thoughts, anyway.
That's helpful.
Thank you. Anything that anybody wants to share what you're doing in your own communities?
Rose Raskin from West Lafayette, Indiana. I've been president now a couple of times, and so I've really hoped that we would get some younger people in, but I'm still working on that, and I like some of the ideas that have come forth, especially being blunt and asking people, how do you want to bring up your kids? And you have to take the ball and run with it. I'd like to share a couple of things that we've been doing that have been helpful for getting, first of all, young members. We have a small but active enough sisterhood group. We have about 80 households in our congregation. And of course, the women are predominant population for that. And so our sisterhood actually can bring in a lot of young people. And so we've had, teas, we've gone to bars, we've gone to a wine tasting, we've done a variety of things to just gather together, and of course on our expense, but we've been able to bring in some younger women to join with us, which was pleasant enough to have their input, and they become now more active. So these kind of social interactions, as has been said with the young initiatives, Jewish young initiatives, that has been very helpful. Another place that we've been getting some interest in is that we have a rather active LGBTQ community and pride events. So we've been a constant not presenter, but participant in the Outfest that's annually each summer, and putting out our brochures, helping to expand our presence in the community. And certainly we've been getting a lot of folks coming to us, and also as a source of folks who have been later converted. Again, the idea of finding out that you're in the community is a major part of adding folks to your congregation. So those are a couple of things that we found actively helpful in recruiting some younger people and diverse folks.
Thank you, Rose. Mitch.
Well, I'm Mitch Brown with the Jewish Congregation of Marco Island. And, one of our biggest challenges is, as we said in our presentation, we're a resort community. And so for those of you who are in or were in education, your students never age. And in our case, our members, they do age, but they're at another spectrum. So as Keith said, he's 61, 62, I'm 67, and we're a couple of the youngest members here. So it's not that we're looking for families to join. We're looking for those members, or those Jews, I should say, that come down here to either spend the winter or to live down here, to re-engage or engage for the very first time in a synagogue. And that's where our biggest challenge is. And so that's why we've been trying to be more out there in the community, and joining the Christmas parade, There's 7 other churches here on the island, so that makes 8 houses of worship here. The island is only 6 miles by 4 miles, so it's not huge. And so that's our biggest challenge, is just engaging members. And coming back to the very first presentation on the youth engagement, the Youth Jewish Initiative. I think it's great what you're doing to get the youth in. And I'm just, after talking to Noah, so I didn't learn this all by myself, but just after talking with Noah, how can we do those same thing with older adults to bring them around? Ideally we want them to come into our synagogue, and Noah keeps saying, don't ask them to join, don't ask them to join, just do something with them. And so that's what we're going to be doing, is going after that 50 and 60-year-old age group of folks coming down here and retiring.
And you have to remember, on top of that, the people that come down here, a lot of them are on vacation, whether it be for a week, a month, or 4 months. The last thing they want to do is come into a house of worship. They want to be on the beach, they want to be in the bar, they want to be in the restaurant, the golf course. So that's why we have activities inside the synagogue and out to try to bring them in. And again, sometimes we get the complaint from our congregation that we're doing a lot of non-Jewish things. And we are, because we're trying to just bring people in that will attract members, but also the community to be all part of it.
I'm the co-president right now of Temple Bris Shalom in Springfield, Illinois. We have 2 congregations. I'm also a member of the conservative congregation, which is Temple Israel. We haven't actually calculated the average age, but I can count on the fingers of one hand the number of young parents in our congregation. The big issue right now is looking at, first of all, we have a 70-year-old building for the conservative congregation, 125-plus-year-old building for the Reform congregation. The surviving members of the Reform congregation have this edifice complex. They want to keep it. I mean, no matter what happens, we want to keep it. The conservative congregation is willing to look at merger, but they don't really want to be boarding at the Reform building. So there's a recognition that this is an aging congregation. Very few young people come to Springfield. There are 2 universities in the area. There's a medical school, but people come and they stay for 4 years and they go. Ever since, so what we're trying to do is maintain the. I wish I could split myself into 2 40-year-olds, but it doesn't happen that way. But we're trying to maintain significant representation and get people to seriously consider merging, even if we're talking about even the possibility of having one building with 2 separate congregations, one with a more traditional service and one with a more non-traditional service. The good news for people who want to identify with the community is that we've got a very active federation and a very active JCRC. So there's good news and bad news. But I'm trying to keep my ears open for something that we can use in our strange but not rare situation.
Mark Siegel, Congregation Temple Emmanuel in Reno, Nevada. A specific question about the Michigan Upper Peninsula group, which I've actually brought kosher hot dogs to some of the Jewish doctors there, and I've been in the Cahotis room at NMU Stadium. So Coca vote for what you're doing. My question is, and perhaps we can connect offline, do you think that your online from Seattle, West Coast, 2 time zones or 3 time zones away, Hebrew school for the few young Jewish families is scalable and could be used at other small synagogues?
That's an interesting question. I need to ask our rabbi that question from Seattle, and she accommodates our time zone because we're all in the Eastern time zone here. And it seems to be successful with the children. I'm not sure with the adults so much. But I could certainly, we can talk about that online. It's a really good question. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of scalable ideas, Noah, from this Zoom meeting here that I'd like to discuss with you offline. So, but
Good.
thank you, everyone. And Helen,
Thank
maybe we can touch base afterwards offline.
Thank
That
you.
would be great. Thanks, Mark, for
Carol.
the question and for visiting us.
I also want to answer that question. We had student rabbis in 3 of our congregations, I think, or 2 of them, and we no longer have those. So we've had to find, in fact, Helen's congregation and the one that I belong to in Petoskey, and our rabbi from Seattle is now the traveling rabbi, actually. She's covering our Petoskey congregation once a month, in addition to the work that she's doing with the online work. She also is involved in every one of our consortium. She is an integral part of what we do. She happens to be a very unusual person also. I think our finding was that we had to find the right person. And she is definitely the right person for us. She has also helped to bring in younger families. So we were just lucky. A couple of us happened to know her, and that's how she was already doing some work with one of our congregations in the Upper Peninsula. And that's how we kind of put it together.
Robin, unmute and introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Robin Plaus. I'm with Beth Hillel Temple in Kenosha, Wisconsin. I am currently the vice president, moving up in another year, and will be the 4th generation of my family. So I resonated with the introduction of the program, but I'll be the 4th generation president of our congregation. My question is actually, I wanted to comment about the Aiken, South Carolina, your 100th anniversary. We've actually determined we've been celebrating our anniversary based on years in the building, not origination of the congregation. So we're going to stick with that. We think 100 on the congregation is a couple years behind us, but I just, would love to hear more, and maybe we could connect offline, but about how you did so many community-based things and really engaged the full community and told some of those historic stories. We have a lot of that in Kenosha from our congregations and the roles they played in the early days in Kenosha. So I'd just love to hear a little more how you came up with those ideas.
Steve isn't here now. He had another thing, but I'm going to put him in touch with you. Did any of you have 100th anniversary programs that you want to share with us?
We were supposed to have a 100th anniversary. Is this correct, Carol? We were supposed to have a 100th anniversary in Sault Ste. Marie, but that's been delayed because of an injury. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And hasn't the synagogue in Hancock had a 100th anniversary?
Yeah, they did. They had one around 2012, 2013. It was wildly successful. They had people coming back from all over the place. I actually had the pleasure of attending it, and it was a tremendous amount of fun. And I believe it raised some money.
Great. Lonnie, then Laura.
I'm Lonnie. I've recently become president of the Sons of Jacob congregation in North Bay, Ontario. We are currently planning our centennial celebration for this coming September. So definitely would love to connect with other leaders online that have gone through that process. We're trying to create an event that is accessible, that's sort of a drop-in. It's not like a set hard and fast, you have to be here at this time. We're having a historical presentation regarding the community members in the building and the significance of our community in North Bay over the last 100 years. We're also planning on creating some booklets with some of the history to give out, also with some Jewish classic recipes in there. And mostly for security purposes, we are engaging our civil leadership, but also specifically inviting other faith-based organizations that we have connected with, and other sort of community partners that have supported us. So it's not open to the public. It's sort of open to the people we've invited. Just for security purposes, we do have a good relationship with our local police force, which is helpful for our events. Yeah, so I would love to connect more with anyone who resonates with any of that or has any advice.
I'm going to send out an email to the entire forum, and anybody who has had 100th anniversaries or plan to have them, we'll put you all together. I think that's a great idea. Laura, and then I think we have time for maybe one or two others because I'm respectful of your time. I think Steve Rosenek wants to share some ideas. So Laura Goldstein.
Yes, hi, I'm Laura Goldstein. I'm the president of the Kerhonkson Synagogue in Kerhonkson, New York. And we had a 100th anniversary celebration back in October of 2022. And we did something that was open to the community. We did a program in the sanctuary where we invited people who were founding families from at a friend's house, and she has a cat who's very interested in the proceedings. We had a program in the sanctuary, but we also had live music, and it was still kind of COVID time, so we tried to keep as much of it as we could outdoors. But we had music, we had food, we did a lot of flyers out in the community, just trying to get the word out, just putting things up on bulletin boards, putting ads in the local papers. We invited other local houses of worship. We had people, we put it out on our social media, and we had a few people who came from across the country, which was, fantastic. People who had roots in the community or, ancestors who'd been founding members back in 1922 and came to join us. It happened to be during election season, so we also had all of the local politicians coming, which was also very, very nice because they came to meet and greet. So I would like to say that it had a lasting impact on our membership. I don't know that it has, but I've really taken to heart a lot of what people tonight have said around community outreach, because it was clear that there was a strong feeling in the community of attachment to the synagogue, and just trying to capitalize on that to bring new members in the door. So thank you for all the wonderful ideas.
Great, thank you. Steve Rosenek from St. Joe, Missouri.
I think the common theme is what we've done is that we are pot stirrers in our community, and we think outside the box. We don't say no. We look at possibilities, and we had less than a year ago, we started a new congregation. We went against the grain and we tried to merge 25 years ago. Didn't work. So we had a community meeting, and we decided at the community meeting, are you interested in forming a brand new congregation? The answer was yes. We voted new board members, and we've been on a roll since then. So we hold our meetings, our Sabbaths, and we actually have a synagogue bet achad, one house. It's in a strip center. We had a committee that was formed by the new board to find where are we going to live. And we took the best from both. Some of the memorial plaques are in storage. We have the textbooks and the Torahs, and that's all we need. And we have 2 adult education seminars. One is Musar, which is self-improvement, which is led by a new convert. And then that's with a lay leader. And then we also have adult education with a rabbi from Kansas City on the Jewish book, basically on our concept of the soul. And that's well attended. And so that is something you do, is adult education that's fun and thought-provoking. And then the other times we go to Kansas City once a month for their Shir Shabbat. And then we have lay leadership do the services. One other thing that we started, it was kind of my brainchild, was we have a Jewish movie night once a month, which The sisterhood helps with sloppy joes and hot dogs and popcorn. And we just have a time where we're starting to rotate movies. We started with Paper Clips, and which is a great movie to start because it involves Kleenex. You're going to cry over it, but it shows how the greater Jewish community was not present in a Southern community which started this project. This is something that we want to go to the local schools and have them view, the eighth graders, this movie Paper Clips. So from that, next month will be Jojo Rabbit. So we're trying to do things outside the box, but we decided we sold our building, our conservative building, about 4 years ago after meeting with Noah when he came to St. Joseph, Missouri. And we've taken to heart the idea you have to let go. The building is something that you have to let go. We use the stained glass in our bima, and basically some things that matter are really just the Torahs and some of the prayer books and the people. And that's all I have to say. And if you want to talk with me how you can do this, this is a marvelous opportunity to really, really think outside the box is what I'm really preaching to tonight. But all of you are wonderful, and you all have wonderful ideas. It's just really a thrill to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're gonna wrap it up. I'm gonna let Mitch do a shout out, but before we do that, three themes for us to work on next year. One is the whole centennial. Two is interfaith engagement, and three is, are we building centric or people centric? I want to tell you, Joplin. We had a meeting with Joplin and a nonprofit called the Community Purchasing Alliance. Joplin was not able to get insurance for their building, and this Community Purchasing Alliance out of DC really makes it affordable for faith-based institutions to get certain services that they can't get on their own. So I think what I'm going to do is at one of our programs, we'll have them come, and I'll also have some information because maybe some of your congregations are in the same situation. If you have other programmatic ideas, you'll let me know. And what I'll do is send everything out that we've had this evening to everybody on our list. Mitch?
Thanks, Noah. I appreciate it. And it was a great evening. Thank you very much for letting us participate. But Steve Stone, you came on and stated you were from Springfield, Illinois. I'm from Chicago. So the minute you say Illinois, there's a match. And one of our dearest and wonderful members, George and Esty Cartman, who are members of our synagogue, told me to say hello to you because they too are from Springfield, Illinois. So
yes.
There you go. Your little 6 degrees of separation or Jewish geography. Here we go. So thank you.
Only 2 degrees.
Thank you. We're all connected.
Yes, we are.
Thank you all, and we'll see you in August for Burnout, which should be a very interesting series of presentations. Again, Andy Siegel, wherever you are, thank you so much, and thank you to all our presenters. You're all terrific. Have a great evening, everyone.